Hello, welcome. My name is Amber and this is my channel, A Foxglove's Handiwork. So this video that I'm about to share with you is a project that has been in the works for a long time. So initially, I thought this video was going to come out in like mid-April, maybe mid to late April. But I had some disappointing news with the project, and then also my life just got busy, and so creating YouTube videos had to be put on the shelf. It's now summer, and I'm super excited to dive back into projects and documenting them. This video, I am making a quilted jacket. I found this quilt at the Goodwill bins, and I am so proud of myself for finishing it. I've learned quite a few things, which I'll touch on at the end of the video. So enjoy. So the reason I'm calling this the armored jacket is because in the corner it says Miller Irma and it has some numbers. So I'm guessing that this was maybe from like a nursing home. And this is like super attached, this tag, which makes me think like it could withstand going through the wash. But this jacket is in honor of you, dearest Irma Miller. The first thing I needed to do was measure the quilt to determine how much yardage I was working with. The quilt measurement was 50 inches by 50 inches, so a perfect square. I lined up the jacket along the half quilt to measure out the, kind of get a sense of the shape needed for this jacket part. I'm using this jacket that was my grandmother's to help create a design, a pattern for the Irma jacket. Now this is too small. It's definitely too small in the shoulders. But as you can tell, it's like my favorite color, kind of muted olive green. And the inside fabric is so beautiful. These kind of liner jackets, I'm very twenty, and I wish this fit me, but it's okay, because now it's giving me a project. But for springtime, I want a light jacket. Since I was using this jacket as my template, I needed to get the measurements of the jacket as well. And then I added, I believe, about 2 inches to make the jacket larger. This is only my second major sewing project, and I am definitely flying by the seat of my pants, using my logic and math skills and visual spatial skills to make this happen. So I've kind of gone through the measurements. I know I have enough fabric of the blanket, should be enough. The only thing I'm not quite sure is I want the maroon to be on the bottom of the jacket and the sleeves. So that might be the only thing, but I think I have just enough, so it's perfect. It all works out. Do I go rogue and kind of cut it before I have the official pattern? I'm just thinking about it. I'm not really gonna do it. I did it. So I'm glad I decided to cut it because look at the fabric underneath. Like what? Oh my gosh. That fabric's beautiful. I wonder what the story is. So here are the 2 panels. I'm glad I cut it. This, get those 2 to line up. Yep, love it. So now I have to cut these. So I've laid the 2 pieces back together so that the outward facing part that I want for the outside of the jacket are both facing outside. This way, as I think about the pattern or how I'm gonna cut it. So for this part, it'll be mirrored.
Because I am a novice, I do not have any tailor's chalk, and so I used pins to kind of indicate my measurement lines and did a lot of eyeballing and lots of comparison between the jacket as my template and the fabric. So the cut turned out pretty good. The maroon is at the bottom, and the sides, the armhole, I think, lined up in a good spot. So now I have the quilt laid out. So the cut side is here, and figuring out the back end. And I figured out, oh, this might be a good way to show it actually. So the widest part is from under the armpit here to armpit here. Because under here, from here is a little bit, it's like an inch wider than it was down here. So I think that's the widest part. And so I took that and measured the measurement plus 2 inches. So the back under the armpit, I think, so in the end will be 24 inches plus 13 plus 13 is 26. So 24, 26, 4 and 6 makes 10, 50 inches. So I'm gonna use some string to get a sense because I don't have I can't find, I do have a soft measuring tape, but I don't know where it is. So we're using other methods. So I'm gonna measure out 50 inches. Not the best way to figure this out, but in a jacket you do want to be looser. That feels kind of loose, but I'd rather make this jacket too big. So here I've done just a rough drawing of what the piece will look like. So this is the back. You can overlay the front panel, but ignore that. So from armpit to armpit, I want the final cut or the final measurement to be 23 inches. So I need to cut 24 inches to give half an inch on each seam allowance. And so I figured out the other measurements. So now, oh, I need to figure out from height. Need to figure out from the toppest of this corner down the bottom, and then I will cut. I think I was too eager to cut the first time. I think we'll be fine, but I'm gonna measure before we cut. I folded the back piece in half so that I was working on the line of symmetry to make my life a little bit easier. Mwah! The math worked out. The cuts are lining up. Perfect. Love it. Since I'm already working with a quilted material, there's all these layers that were exposed when cut. I used pins just to secure the edges as I continued to work with the pieces. I next pinned my 2 front panels to the back edges, so constructing the main part of the jacket. trying on this piecemeal part of the project was so exciting. The measurements and enlarging it a bit seemed to be working. My plan was going to plan thus far. Next, I needed to tackle the sleeves. So I started with measuring them. This must have been another day because I have found my flexible measuring tape. As you can see, I documented. That was really helpful and important to this whole process, and used that measurement on testing it on the fabric quilt that I was using to make sure that I had enough. And if I believe I had like the perfect amount, this project worked out so well. Next, I'm going to fold these in half like I've been doing with, like I did with the back, to cut the bell curve. But time for some measuring. Here in my drawing, you can see what I mean by bell curve. So by folding the sleeve in half to get that symmetrical angle, I just have to do the downhill portion. So I need to measure the distance and width, and kind of the, probably calculus is used, but I didn't, but the level of how the curve is coming down, and mostly just use my eyeballs, but still trying to make it proportionate. As you can see, the pins make that half bell curve shape. Then I just cut it out, connect the dots, and I take my second sleeve and just plop that first sleeve on top of the second one, and use that as my guide to cut out the second part. I insided out the sleeve. I pinned it all the wrong way. Cut myself though. I am not following a pattern. I am just using my brain to problem solve. I'm using my new little pin cushion, which if you haven't seen me make it, I made this thrift flip. You should go check that video out. Here we go. I sewed the side and then the top, so we have an armhole. I did not film this, and I'm glad I did not, but I completely sewed this the wrong way. So I've learned from my lessons. Almost made a second mistake, but I caught myself. I want flower to be outside, so the maroon, so when I sew it, the two maroon pieces need to be on the outside. That will keep me straight. So I have my maroon on the outside. I have my hole. I'm sure there are sewing people out there probably screaming at me, but gotta start somewhere. Also, if you want to give any tips down below, go for it. Keep it vague because I'm a newbie. Open up the sleeve, tuck it in there, and then pull this, not all the way through, but I'm going to exaggerate it so you can see. So now when I pin the two openings together, we will have maroon on outside. Yes, got it. Okay, third time's a charm. So now I'm going to pin it. I am going to start pin cushion. our hole is sewn. A moment of truth. Ooh, let's get those pins out. Yes, I have a sleeve. It's a very good sleeve. Is this a little funky back here? Yes. Is it okay? Yes. Okay, part of the collar is now attached. It definitely took some mind bending to figure out the collar. So here's the inside of the jacket. It'll be maroon. Here, actually, here's the back. Maroon, but then it'll flip over for the collar. Okay, the next part I think that I need to figure out is this part. Because collars, I should probably look at some pictures for reference. I'm still really bummed that it's tight. I didn't make the arms thicker, so it's tight on my arms. And then even though I've made it bigger to accommodate just like a bigger size, it still does it. We learn. I'm pretty impressed with what I've made so far. So I'm starting to think that sadly this won't be for me, but either I give to someone or try and sell. Okay, so collar. Oh yeah, because then this will cross, right? And then the collar goes, oh yeah, so that it like goes to the point where it starts to cross. I'm gonna look up some reference pictures. So I finished the edge of the collar here by wrapping that around. Since this will be exposed, I made sure to wrap it. And I was a little nervous about my sewing machine handling this thick, but it did pretty good. Now here is what I'm trying to problem solve. So the collar will come to about there, but then this is left cut. Instead of trying to fold this over and essentially do the same technique, I'm going to basically use the leftover fabric to create my own basting. I think that's what it's called. The fabric that kind of covers it. And luckily I have plenty. And I think the maroon will be kind of a nice touch. I've created two little flappy flaps, which will cover this cut edge like that. We try. Here is the test. Moment of truth. Okay. We got collars. Oh. Oh, she's sleek. Oh, looks so good. And that little touch of maroon up there. So I'll do the same thing of this over on this side. that's looking pretty good. Final touch here, I'm gonna do this by hand, is to make that look nice and neat. So wrap that in, do some stitching. But that just looks really, really smart, as my grandmother might say. Next is figuring out a way, some buttons, maybe some pockets, but I'm pretty happy.
So, a quilted jacket, the disappointing part was that it's tight in the shoulders or in the back. And I haven't put buttons on, and I also haven't done this yet, but I wanted to get this video out here, and partly so I can move on to other projects. But I have learned, first thing, using a pattern, making my own pattern. I think I'm a very visual person, so I was able to kind of see how the shape of the shirt, my grandmother's jacket, could be transferred onto this, but I think drawing that out with just newspaper or just paper would have been much easier. Now I know that this is kind of a tailored jacket. Having spent time just looking at more quilted jackets, if I could go back and redo this, or like for the next one, not have it tailored at all, but just kind of experiment with really simple, like 90 degrees, which would be simpler as far as like cutting. And also I think it would be a little bit better chances of it fitting too, because this is quite a tailored. I noticed the shoulders are a little long because since I made everything bigger, so it like looks like I could put some shoulder pads in there. But ultimately, I'm really proud of this. I, got the maroon at the bottom like I wanted. I learned a lot along the way, and I'm excited to find another quilt that I can turn into a jacket. And yeah, so thank you so much for following along. My name is Amber. This is my channel, A Foxgloves Handiwork. Find me on Instagram at a.fox.gloves.handiwork. And I must say now this is A Foxgloves Handiwork.